Hey, everybody. My name is John DePietro.
And I'm Bob Zagami with the Camper Report Show.
Bob, the camping season is heating up, and the news about camping is mainstream news now. It's not just about a certain section of society. And you know what? Now, with all the new RVers that are hitting the roads, a lot of them are hitting the national parks. And I'm talking with Kurt Repanshek, who's the editor-in-chief of National Parks Traveler, which is an e-zine or an electronic magazine devoted exclusively to America's national parks. How about you? Who are you going to be talking with?
Yeah, Fitzpatrick, co-founder of a company called No Dirty Earth, and makes a product called No Dirty Water.
Not like that song in Boston, Love That Dirty Water.
Right.
From years and years ago.
Not Dropkick Murphys, no.
Exactly. So we're going to be talking about those two stories and much, much more coming up right now on
the Camper Report Show.
Stay with us, everybody. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the news segment of the Camper Report Show. My name is John DePietro, and Bob Zagami and I are bringing you all the news of the week in our industry. And Bob, before we get into the news that we read about somewhere else, let's talk about the news that you made this week recently with the first ever online RV and Camping Expo. We called it the New England RV and Camping Expo. But most importantly, the keynote address was given by the CEO of KOA, Toby O'Rourke, and she's in the news for other things right now.
Yeah, these media outlets cannot get enough of the CEOs and the presidents of major RV manufacturers and outdoor hospitality industry experts. And Toby appeared on Yahoo Finance this week to talk about the increase in camping, the demographics of camping, especially during the pandemic. And she gave a little preview to the upcoming issue of the North American Camper Report, which KOA funds every year. And they said they're gonna break their record in 2021. They're already in some cases 50% ahead of the reservation bookings that they had back in 2019, which was their best year. In 2020 with the pandemic was pretty flat towards 2019, but they're going to grow significantly this year, as is every other campground and campground franchise program.
Exactly. We'll be talking about another one in just a second, but probably one of the reasons for the growth of camping is because of the Thor report that just came out that said 73% of people that rented an RV in the last couple of years will probably buy one, which is absolutely amazing. And you know what? Those facts come to life right in central Massachusetts when we talk with people like Fuller RV that's been in the rental business for 35 years. Here's what's happening. They're renting as many units as they can, but people are coming back immediately after their trip and they're buying up all the inventory. So talk about Thor's report, because that's pretty interesting.
I'll tell you, there was some great information in this report, and this was based on a study that finished up in December of 2020. Going back to what you said earlier, 28% of the people that were renting wanted to go to national parks. 15% wanted to go to state parks. So that's a significant number. So in addition to being tight for finding campground reservations this year, it's going to be tough to get into any of the state and national parks.
Yep.
You're going to have a lot of company.
Exactly.
But also, the renters, the ones that were not likely, like you said, 73% wanted to purchase. Of the ones that would not be making the purchase, 52% reported they wouldn't use it enough to justify the cost.
Not
which
that
is
they didn't like it.
Huh?
Not that they didn't like it.
No, but that's also interesting because they probably don't know about the peer-to-peer networks that we talk about almost every week. Outdoorsy, RV Share, RVZ. We had Walter Swenson in our expo this weekend as a consumer talking about the benefits and the pitfalls of renting your own RV. But if that's the only reason that these people who are renting didn't want to buy an RV, why not buy an RV and rent it yourself? into peer-to-peer. So that the other thing that caught my eye was about a third of, this is interesting when you look at it from a potential for our industry, about a third of the renters revealed that tools such as video and written instructions on RV usage would have been beneficial in preparation for their rental trip. Again, this information is available. It's available at Mark and Don Polk, RV Education 101. Thor's got all kinds of, and Thor did this survey. Thor's got all kinds of information on their consumer sites. So there is there's a blank there between what the industry has to offer and what all these new first-time buyers are finding available to them. So we have to, again, it goes back to education. We have to get this information into their hands.
Long time ago, probably 10 years ago, McDonald's had a slogan called "I'm loving it." So maybe Go RVing should pick up that "I'm loving it" because McDonald's isn't using it anymore. But Go RVing, Go RVing released some interesting statistics this week also.
Yeah, they did. They actually did an infographic, and we just got this, so I apologize. We didn't have a lot of time to put into it. But one of the things they said was 70% of travelers surveyed are booking domestic trips May through August. They're already booking out into August. They're already booking through the entire camping season.
Yep.
Another info point that they mentioned was that 30% of the workforce will be working from home several days a week by the end of 2021. So if they're working from home, they can work from an RV. So again, pushes out there the narrative that we're going to be selling a lot more RVs and there's a lot of people waiting to get them. Right. And 96% of workers desire some form of remote work environment. Well, who wouldn't?
An interesting aspect of that, working from home might change. That term might change, say, working from outside of the office. It doesn't mean you have to be physically at your home. So as long as you have internet access and communication capability, you can be in your RV on the beach or in the mountains or wherever you want to be. And I think that's important. But there are people that like campgrounds, and our friends at Escapees down in Texas have an interesting story this week. Talk about Escapees in their new story about campgrounds.
Yeah, Escapees is branching into RV parks. Now, they apparently have 8, and they started this back in the 80s. They're called Rainbow's End, and they've just kind of been out there, and that was the original 8. Now they're going to actually franchise campgrounds and under this Escapees RV Parks banner. And that's going to be something because from there wasn't a lot in the press release today, but when you read through it, it looks like they're going to be competing with a KOA or a Jellystone Park. They're going to have their own branded parks as Escapees. And Escapees, when you look at associations for consumers and travelers, they're probably the most aggressive right now in terms of clubs. Let's narrow it down to clubs. They're being very creative, reaching out much to a younger demographic. Again, the homeschoolers, the remote workers and what have you. So now they want to put their branding on RV parks. So it's going to be interesting to see how that develops. It looks like they're going to try to go after existing parks and get them to rebrand under the Escapees RV Parks banner.
Exactly. And speaking of all the new people that are buying RVs and going camping, RVs have a tendency sometimes to break down. And our friends at RV Retailers, which is one of the largest buying groups or dealer groups in the country under several different retail names, has just put together a very creative agreement with our friends at the RV Technical Institute. And we've had their executive director, Kurt Repanshek, on right here on this show, talk about how important it is that the large groups are realizing that they've got to do something about training the new group of techs that they're going to need to keep up with this avalanche of purchasers.
Yeah, this is the first national program of all of the mega dealers where they're going to train all of their technicians. And it looks like there's a program with RVTI called Authorized Learning Partners. So they're coming under that program, but they've made one payment to RVTI. and it covers all of their technicians on the level 1 online service training. And that's important because they're the second largest mega dealer behind Camping World. So, and Camping World is an authorized learning partner. They do have some training in some of their facilities, but John Ferrando, the CEO, says this is their investment in their RV technical training program, and every one of their technicians will be at least a level 1 certified technician in the program. And I know companies like Campers Inn, they're an authorized learning partner, but they're doing it internally on lesser scale. But he said right in his press release on this negotiation and this partnership with RVTI, and he threw the gauntlet down. He said RV retailer is setting the standard for the industry. Yeah. And those other mega dealers, they'll pay attention.
A challenge, exactly. So that's a wrap on the news section. So much news, Bob, going on that we could probably go on for another 15 minutes. But in order to our regular format, we've got to say that this is the Camper Report Show. Stay with us. We've got 2 great segments coming up.
Mike from RV Blogger here. Did you know that every trip that you plan in RV Trip Wizard automatically uploads into the GPS in the RV Life app on your phone? Just click the RV Life app, click the hamburger on the bottom, go to RV Trip Wizard. Your trips all populate. Pick the one you want, and then click the directions to the first campground. Click your RV friendly directions, and you're on your way from where you are to the campground where you want to be.
Okay, welcome back everybody to the Camper Report Show. And this afternoon, my guest is Pierce Fitzpatrick, co-founder of No Dirty Earth.
Correct.
Pierce, welcome to the Camper Report Show. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you get into this product.
Yeah, Bob. So first off, thanks for having us on the Camper Report Show. So I guess to start off, I'm with No Dirty Earth. We have a brand called No Dirty Water and then No Dirty Air as well. We're based here in Michigan in the Lansing area. And we've, my co-founder, John Steekiel, started the business under No Dirty Water and has been, after he left Spartan Motors in 2015 as CEO. And he's been over the last couple of years doing research and development with our team here to develop a really cost-effective water treatment system that is focused on the mobility and RV space. And now we've just launched to market last year in 2020. And we're excited, we have proven technology now with our filtration. We're excited to be in the RV industry here.
That's great. In my 25 years of covering the industry, I've done interviews with John and was very familiar with him when he was at Spartan, and glad to see he's staying active. And this is a pretty exciting product. When I looked at your information, it's really a product that the time has come in terms of people looking for healthy lifestyles, but also in terms of the tremendous growth of camper vans and Class B, Class C motorhomes, the younger generations that are buying them and they want a boondock. Speak to that and the marketing message that you bring into the industry.
Yeah, totally. So I guess to add there too, some of my background, I come from the outdoor recreation industry. So I would kind of have a different spin on the RV space. But camping, biking, climbing is something kind of in my background. And I know there's a lot of people that are upfitting their vans or buying Class Bs that are new to RVing, kind of are looking to do that with their vehicle. But our system specifically, the No Dirty Water system, we've really wanted to focus on creating a water treatment system so that wherever you go, whether it's at a campground or whether you're going off grid, the challenge is we don't know what water we're going to come across, whether you're in Florida or Montana or California. A lot of us are using RVs or vans as like a home on the road. And so you're expecting great quality water wherever you go. And so that's part of what we're addressing here with the No Dirty Water line. It's really simple in our name. It's, you're expecting no dirty water and our products reflect that.
Yeah. And with respect to the boondocking aspect of it, you're right. The place that we're at right now with new RVs is because of COVID, they found out that they can work anywhere. And corporations are finding out that you don't have to have them locked in a 10 by 10 cubicle in an office building to get their work done. So it's the timing is amazing because all these young buyers, the millennials, the Gen Zs, they're going to use that RV a lot more than in years past and older RVers, because they could be out there working from the road or homeschooling from the road, and they may not even own a house.
Exactly. Full timing is huge. And like I said before, people, if you're going on an RV trip or you're going full time or even a weekend warrior, the whole reason behind taking what you need with you is that you can control your environment and at least have some consistency wherever you camp. So whether that's on BLM land, off grid, or at a campground, you're wanting to control, okay, I can plan out my meals. I have a place I can sleep every night, and I can kind of make sure that I have that set up where I have a nice spot to work when I'm working remotely. And so kind of water treatment or being able to have solar on your roof is you're controlling your environment while you're experiencing new things on the road. And so I think we're seeing a convergence in the RV industry now of people using these as more advanced vehicles to be able to have great outdoor experiences while also having the comforts of home. So it's really exciting time.
Yeah, it's exciting. What about the products themselves? Describe the products that you have, and then we'll talk about how people can get them. But talk about your systems.
Yeah, totally. So we have at No Dirty Water, so we have a couple different systems. Primarily, our focus is for you to be able to, or the end consumer, for this to be very easy to install. We don't want to have any sort of complexity. Obviously, most people are just wanting to have great tasting water and good quality water and move on to the next thing. They don't want to have to, finagle with this. So we have our solo system, which is a one filter system, and then our duo system. And so our one filter system, all of our filters are third-party tested. They're made here in the US. And specifically our most filters that you may be able to buy off the shelf are 10 micron, which is, if you're talking about microns in water filtration, the lower the micron, the more filtration is occurring in that filter. So predominantly, if you buy something off the shelf, like a sediment filter, you're looking at a 20, a 10, maybe a 1 micron if it's really premium. Our filters are 0.2 microns. And so that's getting everything down to Giardia, lead, crypto, and we have a full detailed list and a comparison chart on our site that shows what our filters can do and what you're being able to filter out while on the road, regardless of what area you're in. So those are all available on our website, and that's with either our solo system or our duo system. So our solo system is one filter. I'll show you guys here. We have that in a standard 10-inch cartridge. I'll actually just flip it over here. So you can see, so this is easily installed either in your wet bay or even under your sink. And then we have a 5-inch cartridge, which these are the same price. And this can either be installed under your sink or in your wet bay. And they last about 3,000 gallons or a season per filter cartridge.
And we're going to put some more information down below in terms of how they can contact you with that. Now, you also have a more detailed or more sophisticated ozone system. Is that on the market now, or is that coming?
Correct. Yeah. So we do have a DIY ozone system. So a lot of people specifically that are pulling from a freshwater tank, that are traditional RVers, or if you have a freshwater tank in your van, most of the time we don't trust necessarily pulling water from that freshwater tank over the course of a trip. We end up just buying bottles of water, which is logistically challenging, it's expensive, and then it's also really harmful for the environment. So in order to create trust with pulling water from your tank, even if it's being treated, we have an ozone tank system. And so we're using that with a manufacturer in Elkhart called Embassy RV. And so this is a relatively newer product. And so we're able to inject ozonated water, which has historically been used in wastewater treatment, but it's a really effective water treatment gas, basically, and it's injecting ozone into the water, then dissipating back into oxygen. And so that's being able to treat the tank and keep that tank fresh. And then it's being filtered with our 0.2 micron filters for good quality drinking water. So we have that also available on our website too. So that's an upfit. You can retrofit that as a DIY kit.
And you hit the nail on the head. I mean, I've been RVing for 40 years and I've never drank the water out of the tanks. I always carried, bottled water with me whenever we were on the road. You could use the other water for everything else, but if I wanted a fresh glass of water, it was coming out of a bottle somewhere. So that's a great addition to it. And is that something that is also customer installable, or is that something that you're looking at OEMs maybe picking up and installing in the future, or having a dealer or a service center install it?
Yeah, totally. So that system, it's the a little bit more mechanically inclined individuals will be able to do that DIY system. We are going to be uploading a video on how to basically install that yourself. But as of right now, we've really been focusing on the OEMs or even like a dealer to be able to install that and retrofit that into your existing system. The challenge that we're seeing in that is that every tank in an RV is so different, and every freshwater tank and their setup for their plumbing. So we just want to make sure that that's done correctly, so that you're able to get ozone injected into your tank, into the water there, so it's done properly. But we are working on videos for the end consumer to be able to do that as well.
Yeah, well, no, you're quite observant. You're right. When you get underneath, every water tank, it's in a different location. It's a different size. It's a different configuration. Very difficult for a company to come up with a standard product that any manufacturer, you'd like every manufacturer to be able to install it, but the problem is every manufacturer is different. So that could be a challenge, and something that's probably better left to dealers or the service centers to make sure that it's done the right way. So customers now, because you were formed last year as a company, you've been doing a lot of research, you've been doing a lot of testing, you're really ready to go to the marketplace right now. So for now, if consumers want your products, tell them how they can get them and the direction that you're going marketing wise, and where they can find them.
Totally. So yeah, thanks, Bob. So right now we have on nodirtyearth.com. We have the availability for anyone to buy any of our products through our e-commerce store online. We are working to get set up on Amazon here relatively quickly. So if you do prefer buying off of Amazon, we can do that, but that's going to be a little bit, shortly into the future here. But as of right now, we do have our e-commerce store, nodirtyearth.com, where you can buy any of our products, and we ship from Lansing here.
That's great. All right. Our guest this afternoon has been Fitzpatrick, and it's No Dirty Earth, new company, new product, certainly a product that the time has come with healthy individuals looking for ways to have clean water, eat healthier, exercise more, and that fits the demographics of the RVs that many people will be putting them in while they're boondocking and off the grid and being able to live the lifestyle and work mobile and play mobile.
Yeah, a lot of fun things happening right now in the RV/outdoor space. So Bob, thank you so much for having us here. We really appreciate being on your show here.
Thanks for coming on the show, and best of luck with the product and the company.
I'm Jesse from Outsiders Calling, and I love adventurous family travel with my wife Jenny and our son Tucker.
For over 3 years, we've RV'd across the U.S. and Mexico, and it's tough to find places that meet all our needs.
Now we plan our trips with the RV Trip Wizard, pull it up in the RV Life app, select it, and go.
It helps us discover amazing new places to grow together as a family.
RV Trip Wizard with the RV Life app is an awesome trip planning combination.
You can get both for one low annual price. Check out rvlife.com to learn more.
Hey everybody, it's John DePietro, and welcome back to this edition of the Camper Report Show. You know, in the past 2 years in particular, the explosion in the number of new RVers, people hitting the roads in their new RV for the first time, has never been greater in the history of RVing, which goes back almost 50 years. Now, with that being said, a lot of these new RVer adventurers are hitting our national parks. And the best place that I've found that they can go to find out information on the national parks before they even leave the driveway is a publication called National Parks Traveler. And with me today is the founder, the editor-in-chief, the executive editor, the janitor, every title that you want to have when you own the publication. His name is Kurt Repanshek. I get it right phonetically. How'd I do on that? Repanshek.
Repanshek, you got it, John.
And he's joining us today. Kurt, welcome to a show about your publication. And I have had an opportunity to read it and listen to it because not only is it something that you can read, your podcasts are world class.
Well, that's thanks to my oldest son, who happens to be a sound recording engineer. He makes me sound good.
Ah, okay, exactly. So what it all boils down to is more and more people are hitting the national parks. And, I know there was a a lot of concern about, are these people going to know about park etiquette? Are they going to know about what you bring in, you bring out? And, you know, for RVers, you're not going to find the same luxury accommodations, if you will, that you went, if you went to the Jersey Shore or to Myrtle Beach or to the Outer Banks. Talk a little bit about, well, first of all, give us your background and how you got to this point, and then talk about what the new American traveler should be experiencing when they visit a national park.
Well, my background, I hate to admit it, but I've been a journalist for, at least 4 decades, maybe going on 5. I lose track, and went to school for journalism, and I worked for the Associated Press for a number of years. And when I turned into a freelance writer, I really started focusing on the public lands and environmental issues. And I just fell into this niche of looking for national park stories that I could pitch to magazines back during the last century. And we all know what happened to magazines. A lot of them shriveled up and went away. But the readership for the traveler has really grown. People love their national parks. They want to know where to go, what the issues are. And that's what we try and do, is we have travel content up there to help people understand national parks, what they can do, where they might go, what they might want to look at. But we use that as chum to get them to understand the issues that the parks and the Park Service are facing. For instance, behind me over my shoulder is a picture of a drilling pad, an oil well pad in Big Cypress National Preserve in Florida. And most people probably, think of national parks as these pristine places that are protected from a lot of development and mining and logging. And here we've got a situation in the national park system, in our very first national preserve, where they're trying to drill for oil. And it's a long, convoluted story. And if you go to the Traveler and search for Big Cypress, you'll get the background and you'll understand what's going on and why it's such an issue that the people need to be aware of.
Yeah, that's very interesting, because a lot of people think that the parks are, there's no neon lighting and whatever, but the diversity of the parks is absolutely amazing. When you started drilling down, I shouldn't use that term, sorry. When you started really looking into the national parks as an area that you had an intense amount of interest in, were you surprised at the diversity of the parks, not only in the geography, but also their size and scope, and what offerings each park may have had that differed from others?
I wouldn't say I was amazed by it, because like I said, I was a journalist, coming out of college. And so, as I like to say, I know a little about a lot of things, but not much about anything. And so I was aware that there was a wide range. My one son once asked me, well, geez, Dad, how long can you be writing National Parks Traveler? How many issues can you look at? And, I said, well, there's archaeology and paleontology and sociology and botany and all those other ologies out there, as well as just the pure recreational delights and the science coming out of them, and the exploration and the backpacking or the paddling trips or the scenic wonders. So it just goes on and on, John. It really does. And of course, Congress keeps adding to the national park system. I think when I first started the Traveler, there was 390 or 392 units of the park system, and now we're up to 423. So it never gets old. There's always some issue that's worth delving into.
Yeah, and interestingly, last week when I became aware of you, I looked up National Parks Traveler, and there was a podcast on having a wildlife either underpass or overpass around Great Smoky Mountain National Park, which my stellar research pointed out is the #1 most visited park in the United States. So it mentioned the wildlife that traverses Interstate 40. And people say, oh, well, why would you waste that money on an animal? When in fact, the other reality is, how about the number of humans that are being killed or injured in animal versus car or truck or RV accidents? So I thought that was very interesting that you looked at that end of it. And then when you tell me you're looking at drilling down, at that facility in Florida, I see that you're providing insight into areas that a Rand McNally travel atlas is not going to provide for a reader.
We try to. We really do. I mean, there are so many issues out there. I mean, before I joined you today, I was editing a story about Mojave National Preserve out in California and a fire that raged through there last August, and it burned down a huge forest of Joshua trees, which are very interesting, curious trees. They're not really trees; they're a member of the yucca family. We've also got a story a writer's working on about sequoia trees and the deaths of sequoia trees this century, and how it's much higher than it was a century ago, and why is that happening? We've got a story coming up about Big Thicket National Preserve in Texas and the carnivorous plants that live there. So it's just, it's really, I never get bored. There's always something interesting popping up.
And I think it should be pointed out that National Parks Traveler is not just you. You've got a staff of people that cover it from every different angle across the United States and Canada.
Kinda. I'm the only full-time employee, John. We've got about 6 core staff that I rely on, contributors and freelancers. We did move into Canada this year. Canada's got some incredible national parks and beautiful places to go recreate and enjoy, as well as some of their own issues with their parks. The goal from the Traveler always has been, global national parks, because there are so many parks across the world that are deserving of visitation, as well as concern over what they're faced with. And so Canada is really the first other country we've gone into on a regular basis to generate content with. And if that proves successful, we'll conquer the rest of the world, John.
When I referred just a moment ago to a large staff, the old way of doing things was to have everybody centralized in one location where you flew them out every week. But the new way, and even prior to COVID, is that you can work out of one location and have your people, if somebody's going to cover the Northeast, there's no point of having them live in California. So they cover that particular area. So what I mean by that is you've got everything covered, and I think that's pretty cool. How about the publication itself? And I use the term publication because that has such a different meaning, right? Since you and I started in this industry. What form is it in right now, and where can people get access to it, to the content?
Right now it's on the internet. National Parks Traveler is a 501c3 nonprofit media organization, so there's no paywalls. We do ask for donations and support, because it does cost to send a writer out or turn on the electricity or have that IT guy fix what's going wrong with your website. But nationalparkstraveler.org, we generate content every day of the year. And it's kind of a hybrid between a newspaper and a magazine, in that we'll do daily news coverage depending on what's going on, as well as longer features, as I was talking about earlier. We also have a weekly podcast that you can find on nationalparkstraveler.org or iTunes or Spotify or your favorite podcast location to download podcasts.
Yeah.
Once upon a time, we had a digital magazine that came out 4 times a year. And we just scaled that back a little bit. I mean, it'd be nice to do a printed magazine, but that's when you really get involved costs with the printing and distribution.
And you almost have to have advertisers then.
Yeah, and we had a few, but when you're talking about the National Park System and over 300 million people a year visit it, how many magazines do you publish? How many do you print? How many do you distribute? And the costs just they're beyond me, John.
Well, it's billed as the nation's #1 editorially independent website. Describe what you mean by editorially, can't even say it, editorially independent, Kurt.
I make all the decisions, John. There's no corporation, there's no big foundation behind us, there's no special interest group behind the Traveler. We do have a board of directors, and I answer to them. But we try and, from my background as an Associated Press reporter, I mean, we try and straddle the middle of the road and get opinions from both sides, and try not to skew things. I mean, in today's journalism world, John, I'm sure you'd agree that I could name
the same.
I could name a couple outlets, and you could tell me whether it's right of center or left to center or off the charts.
Yep. And they have 3 letters in each of them.
Yeah.
Right.
We try and go down the middle most of the time. And sometimes we don't do as good a job as we like to, but we are open to criticism and strive to hew that middle road.
Final questions. The biggest story, the biggest surprise that you've come across in your covering of the parks, and secondly, where you're heading with the publication.
The biggest surprise.
The biggest story that you said, man, I can't believe I'm writing this story about national parks.
Well, I think the one over my shoulder, that story about Big Cypress National Preserve, I mean, that story goes back to the 1990s and efforts that started during the Clinton administration to buy out the mineral rights. I mean, the big issue here is the federal government owns the surface rights of Big Cypress, and the mineral rights are held privately, and that's why they're allowed to search for mineral.
Say that. So the government owns the surface,
right?
The trees, and how far down do they own?
Well, that's a good question. I've never looked at that one.
But underneath it is available to the highest bidder type thing.
Well, there's a family, the Collier family, that has a long history in Florida. They own the bulk of the mineral rights, and they'd like to explore for them. And they spent 2017 to 2018 doing seismic testing to try and identify oil reserves that are economically feasible to recover. And so now back in January, they submitted plans to the Park Service and the state of Florida to get the requisite permits. And to me, it's just a mind-boggling story because of the beauty of Big Cypress and the wildlife there. You've got perhaps the most endangered mammal in North America, the Florida panther, lives on this landscape. And there's roughly 100 species that the state of Florida considers either threatened or endangered. Back in the 1990s, there was an effort to buy out the private mineral rights, but nobody could agree on the price. They didn't know if there was any oil there or if there was, what it was worth. And it comes down to, would you agree to allow oil drilling in Yellowstone National Park? And if you wouldn't, why would you agree to allow oil drilling in Big Cypress National Preserve?
Yeah, very interesting, because our last trip to a national park was to Yellowstone a couple of years ago. And
a couple years ago, John.
Well,
come on.
We're going to Acadia in in a month.
Well, you want to listen to next week's podcast because
exactly. I saw that promotion. But can you imagine that somebody finds that there's water adjacent to Old Faithful, and next time you go there, there's that rig set up with an Exxon sign or whatever sign. It's so true. You wouldn't think of Grand Canyon or Teton or Yellowstone or Great Smoky Mountains. But this is probably a lesser known park that we're referring to. So they don't have the public outcry. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's safe to say. And here's an interesting statistic. You say it's a lesser known park. It had more visitation than Everglades National Park.
Oh,
and getting back to Yellowstone, back in the 80s, I was the correspondent in charge for the Associated Press in Wyoming. There was talk of developing hydrothermal power just outside of Yellowstone. And there was great concern about, well, what's that going to do to Old Faithful and all the other geothermal wonders in the park? So, these places really are special, and they really deserve our attention to protect them.
Yeah, you can't build them back again, not in any one person's lifetime, by any means. So we want to thank you so much for taking this time from your busy day to join us and let people know. We'll have the information right here on the screen. National Park Traveler, and they can access it online, nationalparktraveler.org, right?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
That's
and importantly, if you like the product, feel free to hit the donate button. I know I did. I looked at it for 20 minutes and I said, you know what? I've spent my whole life selling advertising, and I didn't see anything that was, that looked like Jeep or Eastern Mountain Sports or Gander, all the clothing outfitter places or anything like that. So I made my donation, and we would invite others to do so as well. So with that being said, Kurt, you're going to say your last name so I don't mess it up.
You got it right, John. It's Repanshek.
Okay. So Kurt and I want to thank you for joining us on this segment of the Camper Report Show.